My name is Hege Nilsen. As told, I live far up the northern part of Norway in a small community called Kåfjord. It's about 2 hours and a 15 minutes drive from Tromsø. That's our nearest city. The slide you're looking at is me. I'm 46 years old. I have 2 grown-up sons at the age of 19 and 26. And I'm lucky to have a granddaughter that's 1 year old. The pictures you are looking at is me when I'm stirring the bark water with the leather that I'm working with. Up on the right is me in one of my gaktis. I have another one on me now. We have both summer versions and kind of winter versions that are thicker, and the version made of wool. The bottom right is me scraping the leg skin of the reindeer, making winter boots. So hopefully they will be ready for this autumn so I can sew winter boots for my granddaughter. If you please take the next slide, Andrew. This is where I live. As told, it's a small community. Tromsø is the nearest town, and also the nearest hospital is in Tromsø. As Andrew told, I'm working full-time as an EMT/paramedic. So it's 2 hours and 15 minutes drive to Tromsø in all kinds of weather. So it's exciting, it is. So the next slide, you will see there's Norway on the big screen, and Kåfjord on the right, left picture is a small spot up north. It's a small fjord, and some of you that are participating today might have been here. I saw some names, and some of those names might have been here. I'm sending live to you now from the Handcrafters Guild that I'm a member of. And so in the back, you see some of our stuff. This is a small guild. We are 40 members. About 25 members are active, and we produce stuff. We held courses and travel around in our community and also in neighbor counties to held courses. So you're more than welcome to visit us if you are in the area. It's just to make a call and we come and open it up. I also have to follow along with the slides here. So yeah, this is my home. This is my view, the Northern Lights, the fjord. I'm where you see all the lights on the picture. I'm sitting in right there where Andrew is making the arrow go. The 2 pictures on the left is up in our mountains. We use our mountains summer and winter almost all year around. We also have reindeer herders that has their summer pasture up here. They move their herd from Kautokeino, Finnmark, and over here for the summertime. And they live here in the summer. Then they move back to the winter pasture around October, when the snow is starting to lay in the mountains they are moving. We are collaborating with them, and I get hides among some of the stuff I get from them. And we have a mentality that's called in Sámi verde, and verde means kind of friend. So we exchange. I have fish, potatoes, and they have reindeer meat, they have hides. So we change. And of course, they're friends of us. So it's kind of another family. Yeah. A handcrafter is also called in Sámi a dojar. And a dojar is the Sámi name of a person that makes handcraft. I use both wool. I use a lot of wool, leather, and of course, several different fabrics to sew gaktis. I make belts. We color our own yarn on the left bottom picture. I see there was the questions are popping out. Is that North Sami? Yes, that's North Sami. I'm living in the North Sami area. So our Sami language is the North Sami language. We had a course last autumn. We colored a lot of yarn. And among other stuff, I use the yarn also to make belts. Belts or shoe bag. These are the tiptoe shoes that we use for our gaktis. And also, we weave shoe bags. These are not natural dyed yarn, but I also use the yarn that I'm dyeing for several other shoe bands. The picture up on the right, you have the pewter bracelets. I make some pewter bracelets and pewter decoration. The pewter is not in our tradition. That's this South Sami and Swedish Sami tradition. But nowadays, we use pewter bracelet to decorate us. It's modern, it's fashion, if you can say so. But we don't use the pewter in our gaktis or in our regalias. That's the Southern Sami people or the Swedish Sami people are using pewter in their regalias and belts and for their kufta, for their gaktis.
And Hege, just to clarify for anybody who might not be familiar, the gakti is the traditional dress.
This
and
is
we'll talk more about what that is later in the presentation.
You will learn more about it in the upcoming slides.
Great.
I would love to talk a little bit about the gakti. So if you can switch slide, Andrew. The Coastal Sámi regalia. The area here is called Lyngen. And from the old times, there were three. It was Storfjord, Kåfjord, and Lyngen. That was one big community. And they were split up in three. And that's why it's called Lyngen gakti and not Kåfjord gakti. So people stopped wearing this in our area. And it happened in a lot of the Sea Sami areas along the coastal line of Nordland, Troms, and Finnmark. And in the 90s, this one, in the early 90s, it was reconstructed. There was a small group of youth sitting and starting a big festival also that are here in the summertime in July. It's called Riddo, means a little storm by the coast. Wondering why didn't we have our own clothing? Because all the other areas had their own gaktis or bunad. The bunad has also a strong tradition here in this area. So we are both using the gakti and also bunad. And these youth started to dig in the old history, starting to contact the museums, and they were like looking in old boathouses and finding old stuff that was put away to, of course, in the meaning of not being used again. Nowadays, this is becoming really popular. The youth are taking back the Coastal Sámi regalia. They use it both in weddings, baptism, confirmation, birthday parties, the Riddu Riddu festival is, we have a saying here that if you're not certain and unsecure of using and putting this on, come to Riddu Riddu, because it's beautiful. It's so beautiful to be there and see all the gaktis, all the colors, that this represents me. The color tells me that, okay, this is the area I come from. The mica embellishment, I don't know if you can see it, but I have a mica here and also here. It also tells that I'm from this area. And at the festival, you can see a lot of Sami people wearing different gaktis, and the gakti tells where you're from or which family you belongs to. So that was an invite for you, all that's participating. The pictures you see here is my two sons on the left and my granddaughter. The gaktis nowadays are sewn in different colors. The colors on top of the shoulders, we have yellow in this area. And if you moved on to Tromsø, you will find the yellow is white. And that tells us that we're from this area. The white tells us that you're from the Tromsø area or the Ulsfjord area. My boys are having the traditional one in it's felted wool, and also the picture on the right, the green, that one is also a wool gakti. My friend in the middle is wearing a kind of a silk gakti. It's a summer version, but still you have the colors. You have it's sewn by the pattern of our gakti. So the colors tells me that she's from this area, just as you've seen here. It was, as told, reconstructed in the beginning of the 90s. There were several people involved. And of course, you have a small group that are really energetic that we want to do this. We have a Sami Servi. It's not a guild, but I'm not sure how to explain the Sami Servi, but it's a group of people that works in the Sami community. They were really active in this work, and also the Sami department. And there's a solid work behind the reconstruction. And of course, the desire of developing the gakti, and is built on the historical models. These people have been lurking in the museums and in the cellar, in the darkest places in all the museums all around here. And there's also found in Germany, they found a lot of stuff that comes from our area. It's in museums there, so it's spread worldwide. And the work is also resulted in a booklet called A Sea Sami Clothing in Lyngen. And it's used nowadays also. There's a pattern of how to sew a Sami gakti and how to kind of, it's not written rules, it's not written in stone, but we have some rules of how it's supposed to look like, which color you can use, and so on. The youth nowadays have both the traditional gakti, and the younger people are sewing party gaktis. And those are in glittering fabrics and sparkles when you are on a party. They found a lot at the Ethnographic Museum in Oslo. Of course, it's been stored as almost hidden for about 40 years. And also, they started to look in old manuscripts and descriptions that Just Kvikstad is his name. He's a cultural historian and linguist. He has given those notes to the museum, and it was notes from 1938 to 1945. Kvikstad was born here in this area in Lyngen. It's on the other side of the fjord that I'm living in. And he had collected a lot of information and made descriptions of this gakti. So that's one of the main infos that were also the gakti is a result of that. There was a detailed description of what people owned, and of course how their clothing was. Not so many colors were described. It's often the original color of the wool, which is light gray, dark gray, or kind of black brownish, or the natural white. The fabric was woven in homes, spun by hand, and of course, like kind of you don't felt it, but just like kind of stamp it in water so it gets tighter. I'm so sorry I don't know all the words in English, but I do hope you understand. If not, ask a questions in the Q&A.
English is so very good. We have absolutely.
I'm trying.
You're wonderful.
Yeah. After 1950, there's not much description of the gakti. It's only listed like in church books and in the museum's descriptions as a Finn gakti, a Finn kofte. A kofte is the Norwegian word. Gakti is the Sámi word for the Sámi dress. And the descriptions were kind of not valuable because it doesn't describe any colors, it doesn't describe any patterns or what's used or nothing. This is also in a period where you had the christening coming. So, of course, it has had effect on the Sámi people. We didn't get to use the gakti. Sorry to say, but the government has also been a big part of it. And if you if you change your name to a Norwegian name, the government would give you more land so you can grow more, of course, earn more money. So our history is not just good. And it's sad that it's been that way. Also, the Sámi language is very much gone in this area. The youth is starting to take this back and see the value of, as we say, the Gollekiela, the golden language, or the heart, the Vaikmo-kiela, the heart language. My grandfather spoke Sámi. He never learned it to my mother and my aunties and uncles because the Sámi language were not allowed to speak in schools. Beside my work as a paramedic, I also work at the elder home. And often we see that people with dementia, when they get that disease, the Sámi language is the language they do understand very well. And there was a situation, just like in an example, that I said on Sámi that we're going to the kitchen and eat breakfast. And there was another man sitting there and looked at me and said that, wow, do you speak that language? I said, I had to answer as honest I could, that I understand a lot. I don't speak it fluently, but I want to learn because that was one of the grandfather's language. And he applied to me that it's kind of heartwarming to hear that you youngsters are taking the language back. The language I was beaten by talking. And that's how it's unfortunately been here in these areas. The Sámi language was spoken in the homes, and it was often spoken so we or my mom's family wasn't supposed to understand if there was issues or something happening, or So the Sami language is coming back, even though it's a lot of hatred still. And I think that if you compare it to other indigenous people all around the world, either if it's here, if it's in the United States, or if it's among the Aboriginals, you find the same stories and a lot of similarities. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's been, the government have had a committee that's been working for 5 years to collect all the stories. They've been looking in old church books and kind of trying to reunite us. And it's been read for 37 hours from the National Museum. It's been live for all, of course, in Norwegian and in Sami. And all of the results are in this report. And it's not good reading, but it's a part of our story and we have to look forward. So,
but the full report, the entire government report is being read out loud.
Yeah. And I think that this webinar is a part of looking forward. I'm allowed to share my culture, my history, my area, and my knowledge with you.
Yes.
Back to the kufta, the gakti.
Excellent.
Yeah. If you, Andrew, can show. Thank you. There we are. This is, as told, we use the mica. And in the sunlight is also called Krauss silver, Fox's gold, and also poor man's silver. We use it in the women's clothing. We have a decoration here. We also have a decoration here. And we also have it in belts, in hand-sewn belts.
Hege, will you show on yours where it is again? I still have the slide shared, and so I want people to really be able to see on your gakti where it was.
It's on slide. Just 2 seconds. On slide 17.
Ah, perfect. Here we go. Let me get that shared. So here are the close-ups of that.
Yeah. This is the gakti I'm wearing. When the sun hits, or the lighting hits here, I don't know if you can see it on the screen. I'll try and you see it sparkles, it glimmers.
Yes.
We use it in belts, as told. We also have it on decoration on handbags in different patterns. And the pattern, of course, this is kind of pattern that's used a lot here, but you find the pattern, in other Sami areas, and you also find the same, almost the same patterns in Turkey. You find it in Egypt. So it's been traveling worldwide. I'm sure of it. This has been shared. So yeah. If you, Andrew, can put the mica slide on. As told, it's in sunlight, it glitters, and it kind of looks like silver. And it's been used like a substitute for silver because silver is expensive. And the mica decoration has been used way back in time. As told, it's called Krauss silver, or in Sami, Rebangolli. It's fox's silver. Golli is gold, so fox is gold. It's a mineral. It's found in mica rocks. It's soft, and you can break it, and it lies in flakes. So you use a small needle to kind of separate it as thick that you want where you want to use it. It's really shiny, and it's very suitable for decoration. as told, is also been called the poor man's silver. And it also can withstand high temperatures. And that was used in glass ovens and in other electrical products from the old times. We find descriptions of the mica decoration dated as far back to the 18th century. So it's been used for a lot of years. The technique of sewing, the mica was for very many years absent from our areas. In the early 80s, the technique was brought back to life. And that was in connection with the project about revitalizing the old clothing traditions. And also this project with creating our gaktis and taking it back. We also have the men could either use this, as I'm wearing, I think you call it like a kind of a collar here. And they also have it on their back of the collar, on the men's gakti, and also in their belts. The technique involves making small holes in the decoration that you want to use. And behind those holes, we flake the silver and we attached it, and the cloth is firmly applied. So it's stuck there. There was a question, how do you attach the mica to the fabric? There you got the answer. And when we use leather, we have, it's a kind of worm that lives underneath the skin of the reindeer. And they make small holes in the leather. So some of those holes, I think I have some to show you. Just a moment. If I get the lighting on it. There's small holes. There's the small one. I don't know if you can see it. Is it visible, Andrew?
Very faintly, but yes.
Yeah. It's a small hole. And if you want to use the whole skin, the whole leather, you can use this hole, put mica in it, and it will sparkle. And it's a natural hole made by a worm. It's not dangerous for the meat, the reindeer meat. And the reindeers are getting vaccinated for that, but some of the reindeers still has it. So it's the idea of using everything on the reindeer. So you see a picture of the mica, and you also see the flaking. On the right side of the picture, you see it quite clearly. It's built up in flakes. It also can have different colors. Kind of blackish colors, reddish colors, and it's some kind of the iron in the rocks that makes it kind of reddish. The most common is the one on the right. Looks like silver, and you can find it in rocks, kind of big rocks. We have small places. Little secret places. We don't tell everybody where those places are. Then you can pick rocks of these. So, yeah. There you have the mica embellishment on a male gakti. The picture on the right is in the back, and the picture on the left is the front. And that's my gakti I'm wearing. You see the mica embellishment here on the right, and on the left you can see up on my collar here. And there you have handbags with mica on it. It sparkles. And used to say that we kind of beat like crows or ravens, because the more it sparkles, the more beautiful it is.
And so it's really each one of these small circles is its own flake of mica.
That's kind of pieces that's put behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And you can use embroidery or silk thread, or but we try and stick to some of the patterns that are in our areas. So, and combine the patterns together.
Great.
Next, Andrew. That's a Doyar is a Sámi seamstress. There's my cousin and her daughter, and my granddaughter's baptism cactus that's sewn in silk. So there's a lot of variety in colors, fabrics you can use, but still we're using the colors here that tells us where we're from. Is the lighting interrupting? Is it okay? Because the sun is popping out here.
Fine.
Yeah.
No, it's really interesting though to know that the main color is less important for communicating where somebody is from, but it's the border color that is in charge of the communication.
Yeah.
Of meaning.
And of course, the Gakti is developing. It's modern. You put silver threads in it. They didn't have silver threads in the old times, but it follows the community. It follows the fashion. So It's developing. We also have a strong hand stitching and like the tradition of hand stitching. Some leather are made from fabrics, but also mostly we use homemade leather that's made from scratch. The picture on the right, bottom right, that's homemade leather, and also these handbags, as shown, is homemade leather from scratch. You will see further on the slides, so you will see small movies of me making the leather. It's quite a big process. Next, Andrew. This is how the homemade leather from reindeer looks like. It has a soft, lightly brownish, reddish tone color, and it's soft sewing in it. It's quite different on sewing in homemade leather to the machine leather, the chemical tanned leather. And I'm said to compare it. It's like skimmed milk and cream. This is the cream. So just to have something to compare it with. But then again, it's a lot of work to get it done and to get it good, to get a good leather. You will see that on some of the other slides. This is where the process starts. Here we have raw hides brought from the slaughterhouse. These hides has been lying underneath the snow, the spring snow, and the process is starting. We use clear water, cold water, to moist the skins. We scrape them and wash them just with water, put them together again, roll them up, and we put them in a plastic bag. You're starting a rottening process. We want the good bacteria. Yeah, it's a bit smelly. It is. But if it's too smelly, then we have bad bacteria. And if the smell tells us also where in the process we are. We wash them just with water to get all the blood. We scrape off the fat. And if something extra is like some meat, pieces of meat and pieces of fat, and we take that off. This depends, when it's ready, it depends on temperature. If you start now and with a temperature around 5 to 10 Celsius, I do believe it takes about 2 to 3 weeks before they're ready for the next step. So this is a long process, but it's worth it. And this natural and traditional tanning is it's kind of a vanishing traditional craft because it's really much work. and it's really expensive leather if you're going to buy it. And mostly we are using it for our own belts, our own handbags, and because the process takes so much time and effort. On the next slide, there you see the fur is starting to loosen. These are the picture on the left, you see dark spots. I'm not sure if I'm going to save that skin, but I will try. The process has gone a little bit too fast and a little bit too far, but I might save it and try and save pieces of the leather so it's not thrown away. There you will see a small movie.
This is the start of the reindeer leather. This is the roughening process has started. All the hairs, almost everything is loose. These are almost ready to go in the bark, the willow bark water. These, one of those are too much kind of rotten. It smells. This one smells too much. You see it's got spots from the blood. This is not good, so this is not usable. This is the view. Rainy day, kind of cold.
Wow, it's an incredible view.
Yeah, it is. But and this is kind of the perfect weather of making leather, because it's cold, but still the process goes, and it doesn't go too fast. On the next slide, I think that's a movie as well. Yes, it is.
It's also a part of the process. Here we hide this rolled up in a plastic bag. Kind of smelly. The roughening process has started. I don't know if you can see it. This is the good bacteria we want, so it's not that smelly. And the hair is starting to loosen. This is not quite ready. I'll touch it over the neck and over the back, and if the hair loosens there easily, which it doesn't do here, it's not ready. Then I just make it wet again, roll it together. It's supposed to be like this. Then it's ready. So this has to lie a couple of days more.
Also, you saw that I said that you take it in the neck and also on the back, because that's where the parts where it's most thick leather and the hairs are most stuck. And even if some of the hair are loosened, you don't take it off. You just put it back on till everything is loosened. On this slide, you will see, or this movie, you will see how it should look like when it's ready.
Okay, here's another one. The hair just falls off. Perfect.
It's kind of satisfying to look at.
Here's another one. The hair just falls off.
It really is.
Perfect.
Yeah. And it's not that smelly. Of course, it smells a bit, but kind of to kill the smell, you can use like cheap washing powder with no bleach in it, just to take off some of the smell, or some natural soap. That's also a possibility, but I don't use that. It's not that bad smell, so it's quite okay. Then you go to the next step of the tanning of the leather. We collect willow bark, and it's kind of not a rule, but it's easy to pick before the 23rd of June. Our handcrafters year kind of follows the month, and the springtime we do that, in the summertime we do that, in the autumn we do that, and the wintertime we do that. Now in the springtime, when the willow is starting to get green, they have a lot of water in them, and it's really easy to peel all of the bark. I boil it for 1 to 2 hours. You can boil it that's also not a rule, but I boil it 3 times. Then I have to add new willow bark in it. And I use both old dry bark to get the color, but also use fresh willow bark to get the tannins. And the tannins are those that like preserve the leather. I bought an old house 5 years ago. It's from 1950. And in that house, there was an old washing machine. And it's perfect on using to this purpose. It goes around, and the leather is always moving in the water, because if the leather lies still, you will get stripes and kind of shadows in the leather. So you don't get so good leather to work with. Of course, if you want kind of effects, you can do that, but you have to make it keep it in movement.
Yeah.
The picture on the left is that's a done leather. In the middle, you see my old washing machine, and on the right side, you see it's still, when I scrape it, it's still kind of turned white. So that's not ready. That has to go in another bark water. On the next slide, there you see some of my scraping tools. The one on the left is a jehko, and it's an S-formed scrape. And I use it in the beginning to scrape off fat and meat, rest of the meat. And those on the right, I use further on the process for the fine scraping. These are not sharpened, but I do sharpen them before I start using them. So they have both each purpose. There you have a small video from my kitchen.
Boil valve for box, not waiting an hour and a half. I'm gonna mix it with cold water and put the leather to soak in it. This is willow bark, dried and fresh.
And this didn't go as planned.
Here, this is willow bark water. We'll put some of this in it. This is fat to soften the hide. This is how the bark water looks like before we start. This one, I don't know what really happens, but it turned out like this. It's not supposed to be like this. So this is going back in the water for another round with fat and willow bark.
So even when it goes wrong, there's a way to solve it lots of the time.
Lots of the time. The leather you saw on that movie is this leather here. It's not so papery and doesn't make so much sound, but it's still not good. So I have to soak it one more time with more fat. Okay. But it's starting to get a good leather. So it's a process. Everything takes time. The time is like soaking and scraping all the way. And the last bark water, I put the fat in it. And you start with, when the leather is dried off, it's thick. It's like this. This I have to soak again. It's ready tanned, but I have to soak it and put fat in the water. And then I have to soak it all the way through and start stretching. And stretch and stretch and stretch all the way till it's dried off. And when it's dried off, this will be the result. Soft reindeer leather. And it's perfect to sew in. I think the next one is a small clip of film.
Yep.
That's the leather I soaked.
Hopefully. This is getting softer. It's all wet. It's hanging here to dry off a bit. And tomorrow starts another round of stretching. This is the work view. This is my home.
Wow.
That's where I live.
Beautiful.
There you have the next steps in the process. That's also a film. Well, this is one of the next steps in the process. This is a reindeer hide that I've been collecting in my freezer. It's still a bit frozen. It's been tanned in willow bark several times. And now I'm going to stretch it so it turns soft and usable. And I'm using my old staircase to do this. Andrew, can you use the full screen? Takes about a couple of hours to stretch and wait a bit till it dries off. Stretch more, work with the leather. The more you work it, the softer it gets. And it's so good sewing in it when it's done.
Hey, I'm sorry, I missed your question. What were you asking?
Yeah, if you have the full screen, because you're sharing kind of small, so we see all your...
I'm sorry, I thought it was sharing the full screen. Let me try that again. I will stop. Let's do the... Thank you for the heads up about that. Let's try this video again, shall we, everybody?
Well, this is one of the next steps in the process. This is a reindeer hide that I've been collecting in my freezer. It's still a bit frozen. It's been tanned in willow bark several times. And now I'm going to stretch it so it turns soft and usable. And I'm using my old staircase to do this. Takes about a couple of hours to stretch and wait a bit till it dries off. Stretch more, work with the leather. The more you work it, the softer it gets. And it's so good sewing in it when it's done.
Excellent. That was better. I apologize about my my bad screen share there.
And that's the final result. The leather it's soft, it has a good sound, and it smells delicious. The leather you saw me kind of working on my staircase is this one. And you see it's soft. I don't know if you can hear the sound, but it kind of squirks, makes like I don't know how to describe it, but it's soft. And it's so good and sewing in it. And we make as told, belts. This is a belt with embroidery is on. We also make kind of whole leather belts with mica in it, decoration. We make, as told, handbags. I sew hats, winter fur hats. Small pouches to have jewelry in. Or you can use these for sugar. When we go up to the mountain, we use this for sugar, and we have bigger ones for coffee, and we put it straight in. So it preserves the coffee. And if you are making one of these coffee bags, the fat from the coffee makes this bag smell delicious, and it also turns to another color from the coffee fat. So this is things we use, like in daily use when we are heading up the mountains.
Wow.
So I think that was the last slide.
It was the last slide.
Yeah.
We have a couple questions that have come in from folks who are wondering about, they have a couple more questions about the tanning process. Mm-hmm. Folks are wondering if the brain of the animal is ever used in the tanning process.
It's not so common in the US here. You can, that's the fat tanning. Okay. It's different ways of tanning. You can either use, of course, you can use salt. You can use bark, the tannins from the bark. And you also can use fat like egg yolks and oil and the brain. It's been used in the older times. And it's said that the reindeer's brain is enough to fat tan that exact deer's hide. I never used it. I never tried it. I've used egg yolks and oil, but never brain.
Excellent.
Brain tanning is also, I know in the United States, there's a lot of people using brain tanning and also smoke. Mm-hmm. Preserve leather.
But the willow bark is the most traditional.
Willow bark is the most traditional in the Sámi. And I think that's because the willow is growing all over. Mm-hmm. So it's easily to collect. It's easily to preserve. You just roll it up. You can dry it. You can use it fresh. You can dry it. You can bring it with you wherever you go. And you will find it everywhere here in the northern part. So I think that's one of the reasons that's mostly used here.
There was another question about the willow bark. How does the boiling willow bark smell? What is that like?
It smells kind of sweet. If you use dried willow bark that's been drying for maybe a couple of years, you have like a sour, bitter smell, but still you have a sweet smell on top of that. Mm-hmm. You can also do tasting. It's not dangerous because it's all natural. There's no chemicals at all. I use a little bit of salt also in it to preserve, but it's not much. And just ordinary sea salt. And you can taste also the bark water. If it's bitter, it has very much tannin in it. And then you have to put more water in it for the first and the second bath. Because if you use a strong solution, the pores in the leather will close. Yeah.
Great. A couple other questions about the tanning process. Can the fur from the hides be used for anything when that comes off? And also, does the leather need to be wet when you stretch it?
Yeah. First, the leather needs to be wet when you stretch it, because if it's dried up, it's like this. It's almost like you can break it. It's so dried up. Okay. It's all stiff, and you are not be able to stretch this. So when you wet the leather, make it wet again, the fibers in the leather spreads, and when you then stretch it, you soften the leather because you stretch the fibers. Mm-hmm. There was another question also. Can
the fur that comes off be used for anything?
We don't use that nowadays. Okay. But in the older days, they washed the fur because it's a little bit smelly. Mm-hmm. And it was stuffed in mattresses. and pillows, because the reindeer, the hide of the fur of the reindeer is hollow. It's air in them. And it's one of the most warm things you can use. That's why we sew our winter boots with the reindeer legs fur. We are using the winter fur, like the winter hide with the fur on. We sit on it on winter time. We sleep. We have tents up in the mountains. We put up our tents in February, and they are standing there until the 1st of May.
Okay.
And we lie on them. We use them as a mattress, and it's warm, and we take them with us when we go fishing on the ice. And so we almost use the whole animal.
Fabulous. Several folks are interested to know about the plants that you use for dyeing the skeins of woolen yarn. There was the picture at the beginning where all of those skeins were hanging. And I remember yesterday you said everything except the blue was a local plant. The blue was indigo that had been imported.
Yeah, the blue one is indigo. The green, I have to look at the slide so I remember. Just a minute.
And I can pull that picture up for folks too here.
There it is. The green on the left, if I do remember right, it's birch, the leaves from the birch, that turns it yellow. And then we put iron, either iron powder, or we put it in, we boil it in iron. I don't know if you call it casseroles or...
Yep, like an iron stock pot or cauldron.
Yeah, cauldron. Yep. Yeah, cauldron. Yeah. And the lilac color, that one, yeah. That's we collected from rocks. I don't know the English word for it, but it's a kind of a moss. It's black, and it forms. It has like an umbilical cord on the bottom, and it's like this. We pick it from rocks.
Okay.
And we put it in ammonia. Someone said lichen. I have to...
Lichen? Yep.
Lichen. I have to Google it to see what it is. We'll try and find the Latin name of it.
But all of the plants are local to your region, other than the indigo?
Yeah, it's local. It's the scientific name is Umbilicaria. Umbilicaria
lichen, somebody said.
Yeah. We put it to yeast in ammonia for everything from 3 to 6 months, and then we use it.
Okay.
And we boil it to a certain temperature, and that's the color we get from it.
Wow, such a vibrant purple.
Yes, and then we use like the first coloring, the second coloring. So the first one is kind of bright, strong colors, and the second is a paler color, but it's still are really nice.
Mm-hmm.
The orange red color, it's yes, that's not local, that's cochineal lice. Yeah, and that's the first cochineal, first bath and the second bath. And also you can combine the cochineal with I don't remember the name you said for the moss, for the lichen.
Lichen. Yep.
Lichen, yeah. And then all the way to the right in the picture, there's a small stripe. Yeah, that's kind of a darker red.
Ah, yes, way at the back.
So that's combined the cochineal and the lichen.
Excellent. Yeah. So the last question we have time for today. At the beginning, you showed a band, and you also had the bands that were in the shoes. How do you do the band weaving? Is it with a heddle of some sort? Is it tablet woven?
Yes. I can show you. Just a moment.
Aha.
We use this, and with the pattern we are using are the yarn we put through this, and then we take this up and down, and we have like a warp.
Yep.
It's kind of a loom.
Yep.
So I know. Yeah.
Yep. Wonderful.
This is the most common. We don't. The Sami people are not using bricks.
Mm-hmm.
That's not like kind of common to use here. This is the most common to use, and we can make like several patterns in it, either to just wove straight ahead or just to pick up and make a pattern.
Yeah.
We don't have those pickup patterns here.
Okay.
So, and the pattern on the shoe bands also can tell us which family you're from or which area you're from.